Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
I was in tears. I was just like, that's the best, man.
Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. My name is Ryan McGuire, and I'm here to bring you conversations with the most wild folks on the planet. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. Appreciate you guys. Let's get it going. So, you're asking why it looks more tender. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this is like true or not, but it's from Backcountry Meats. And they're like a...
it looks so delicious.
Yeah, here, grab one there.
When do I get to eat it?
Now.
Cheers. Oh, baby. Super tender.
Really good.
Delicious.
And this is the first time I tried... This is a skirt steak. So I figured you're a man that respects good meat. Hunter. Gotta try with Ben. Get a stamp of approval.
This is delicious.
Stuff in there.
Delicious. And you're smart because you know how to cut it against the grain rather than with the grain, which is essential for tenderness in each bite.
Very important. So, yeah. Backcountry Meats, they do like regenerative agriculture, but with cattle. So they're basically letting the cattle do their thing, run around on the land, and they associate it more to like a wild game because the animal's kind of just roaming like bovine would, in the wild. So I thought you'd appreciate that.
That's delicious. That was very good.
Well, thanks for coming on, Ben.
I'm stoked to be here.
I think we have a lot of similar interests, so I'm super stoked to talk to you.
Yeah, man.
Just like a little bit of background outside of like the hunter and all the cool hobbies you have now. If someone was watching this pod and they're like, that guy looks familiar. Why do you think they might think that?
If they think I look familiar, it's because I am really famous in the adult video world. I'm just kidding. I had to throw something in there.
I love that.
No, if they think I look familiar, they might have seen me on YouTube or Instagram if they were looking up like fitness stuff, especially if it had to do with CrossFit, because I run a company called WOD Prep that teaches people how to get better at CrossFit, and a lot of people recognize me because they'll like watch YouTube videos on like how to do pull-ups or how to do, muscle ups or something like that, and they'll recognize me from that.
Yeah, that was actually what happened to me. I was like, I met you through Eric, and I was like, gosh, I know this guy from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was some movement instructional video that I had watched on YouTube, like trying to get better at something. And I really like your guys' videos. Like, you really break down like technique that like most, I feel like alpha male strong guy, we don't really think about like the skill part of functional fitness. It's more like just get strong and put in a lot of volume. Yep. So I really like the instructional videos that you guys make.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I like started doing instructional videos is I used to own a CrossFit gym, and I basically like realized that a lot of people when they do CrossFit, they don't actually get taught very well how to do the things. They'll go through like a foundations curriculum sometimes, but in terms of like learning the more like advanced skills, a lot of times it's just like, hey, if you can do muscle ups, then do them in the workout. If not, here's a modification. And a lot of times there wasn't a lot of instruction to actually get people to be able to do these movements. So I kind of just started leaning into just teaching people how to do all of the skills that it took me a little while to learn. And I started getting pretty decent at teaching them to other people in person. And then I just kind of took that information, put it on the internet, and that's how WOD Prep was born. So.
Are the first videos you made just like trash?
Terrible.
Are they so bad?
They're so bad.
Are they still up?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I'm
so
pretty
go
sure.
Watch these if you're.
I'm pretty sure on YouTube. YouTube you can sort by like oldest to newest, and yeah, they're pretty garbage. It's pretty bad. The oldest videos that I have though are on Facebook, and you know what? I don't know if I've ever tried it, but I bet you could probably go to Facebook and then do some sort of like filter or sort by like oldest thing ever posted, and that's where you'd find the trash. Like That's where you'd find the true garbage videos, because it was so bad. I didn't know how to edit videos. I didn't know how anything worked really. So I'd shoot the video. I'd press record on my camera. I had this old Canon T3i, and I would like press record. I would film me like teaching like a strategy video, because really the initial start of WOD Prep was me trying to teach people how to do the CrossFit Open workouts, like those big workouts that everyone participates in. I would make strategy videos for that. So I'd like press record, and then I would do this whole strategy breakdown where I'm like writing things on the whiteboard, and I'm trying to like go through like all these progressions and stuff like that. And if I made a single mistake, I would just be like, ugh. And I'd stop the video. I'd have to erase the whiteboard, and then I would just restart.
Oh no.
So I would like shoot these like 15-minute videos and get like 13 minutes in and and mess up and just be like, well, I guess you got to restart it, because I didn't understand you could like edit it out. So yeah, they're really bad. I'll put it that way. They're really bad.
You've come a long way now. Your videos look great. So, I mean, if they still sucked, we'd have an issue. So this is like a true comeback story.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we've lots of time, energy, money has been spent on trying to improve our videos. And now I have a great team. Like, I mean, really it all revolves around the team. Like I have this group of people that does a great job making sure that my videos don't suck, because like I'm colorblind, like very colorblind. So there's been times where I've had to shoot videos, and even still sometimes they're like, hey Ben, like if I don't have my videographer there, like shoot this video really quick, and I'll shoot it, and they're just like, Ben, why is your skin like ridiculously red or pink, or like what's wrong with all the colors? And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like so bad at like getting things in focus. Like I'm just terrible at it. So for me, it's like, as long as I can just sit down and just talk, that's my only realm of expertise, is to do the talking and coaching. Everyone else takes care of everything else. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's ideally, like in an ideal world, you have like the creative person sitting in front of the camera talking, and all the other stuff is like something you don't have to worry about, right?
Yep, and that's kind of what I've created. I've been really lucky, like have my own video studio here in Colorado that is, basically like a mini CrossFit gym that I can have access to anytime I want. I have a video guy that comes in. His name's Travis. He crushes it. And then my whole team does all the editing and stuff like that. So pretty much like coming up with ideas for the videos. We brainstorm together, my team. And then like all I have to do is stand there and do the talking. Anything else I would probably do very bad at. Yeah. But as long as I'm just the one in front of the camera doing the talking, it seems to work out well.
Yeah, Travis is a good guy to ask about that stuff. He actually, like, the reason these mics are here, the camera recommendations, all that stuff, I hit up Travis and I was like, yo, what do I need? Because I don't know anything about anything. And he told me, he's like, got to get this mic, got to get this camera. And I was like, all right.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Travis knows his stuff. It's been amazing. I mean, I guess I've been working with him for, over 2 years now. And we just like, it's amazing when you have someone who you like, it's almost like dating, right? It's like you a lot of times don't connect with people, and then all of a sudden you connect with someone, you're like, oh wow, like this person's very easy to be around. Like I enjoy, like I don't feel stressed or uptight. Or it's like fun to be around this person. Same thing goes for finding a good videographer. Like some videographers who would come in, I just felt like they were just like, all right, what's next? Like perform, like what are we doing? And I'm just like,
dance, monkey.
But Travis and I are just like, we work so well together, and especially when we're making like comedy videos, like sometimes I make some funny videos. He's hilarious, so we just bounce all these jokes off of each other, and like we come up with some good stuff. It's a good time. And actually, as of recording tomorrow, I think one of the funniest videos I've ever made is coming out tomorrow, so I'm really excited for that.
All right, can you give us a sneak peek, or is it a secret?
Let's see. Can I channel the character? Basically, it's almost like I'm like a Dom Mazzetti of CrossFit kind of thing. I call myself Chad, and then I'm basically telling everyone why they shouldn't register for the CrossFit Open. It's going to be a good video.
Nice.
It's going to be funny.
Yeah, the CrossFit Open, I was just talking to my sister about this because she's been a long-time CrossFitter. I've never done them, but I always see, like, in my feed, just, like, people in complete disarray after those workouts, just, like, sprawled out on the ground, dead. So what's to come this year? Is there anything, like, that's changed or any big news coming into the Open?
Nothing too big. The Open this year is three weeks long. So they'll release a workout on Thursday, starting in like 2 weeks from now. They'll release a workout on Thursday, and then you have until like Monday night to submit a score for that workout. And it's 3 weeks long. I'm sure they'll have like a couple workouts where it's like a two-parter where they'll be like, establish a 1 rep max for this lift and then do this workout. But I think the reason you see the people that are in just like disarray, it's not that the workouts are any more difficult than a normal CrossFit workout. It's just that people in a competitive setting, as I'm sure you know, right? It's like when you're in that competitive setting and all of a sudden stakes are on the line, literally stakes. all of a sudden when you have that competition, you tend to push yourself to a level that you don't normally do in practice. And I think that's why the Open brings out the best, truly the best of people, because they actually see what they're capable of.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the Open because it gets hundreds of thousands of CrossFitters across the globe to register in this like united event where everybody's doing the same exact workout at the same time. And you actually get to see your score stacked up against your peers, but also it just brings the community together. I really, really love it. And I've done it for a really long time, and is also the biggest part. It's the busiest time of year for WOD Prep, like for my company, because we kind of are like if people know about us, it's usually like, oh, you're the guy who does those Open videos, right? Like that's what we're known for. That's kind of the bread and butter. So this is a very busy time of year for us.
So when they release this video, it's like, 50-meter handstand walk, and then you guys go back to the lab and you make a video like, here's how you should break up your 50-meter handstand walk if you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So like they'll release a workout, and let's say it's we'll just use like toes to bar, thrusters, and wall balls, right? So I'll make a video about like, all right, here's the whole workout and here's the strategy. Don't burn out on the the wall balls because they're going to make you tired. For the thrusters, blah blah, like I'll come up with a strategy for it. And then also I will like teach individual tips on like, hey, here's how to do toes to bar most efficiently. Here's how to do, the thrusters most efficiently. Here's some tips for the wall ball. So we like break down all the individual movements and then the whole strategy as a whole.
And if you had like a 15-year-old kid whose goal was to be in the games, let's say it was your son or your nephew or something, and you were coaching him, what is like the biggest piece of advice? What would be the thesis of training him to become the best overall athlete?
Let's see. If they were at 15 years old, let's say, younger person, like they have the potential to grow into becoming the athlete that could make it to the games. I would probably start with like the foundation for their training would be strength focus. Like we want to build up a lot of strength for them to get to games numbers, which still just astonish me every year that the CrossFit exists. Crazy. It's just like the numbers that people are competing with are unreal. Like right now, I'm strong enough to be pretty decent. Like I could compete very well, let's say a decade ago, if I was as fit as I am now. But now I'm like not even close, right?
Yeah.
So it's just amazing the progression. So at, let's say 15 or so years old, we would focus on building a really strong base in the Olympic lifts. So we'd make sure that their technique is dialed in, that their actual raw strength for squatting and pressing is dialed in. And then, we'd add on like accumulating skills. Like we'd make sure that they're very highly skilled. And then when it comes time to be like actually performing workouts, that's when we start building in the conditioning. So I would start with probably a heavy strength and gymnastics base. And then from there, obviously we'd add in an engine, because you have to have a very good engine to compete in CrossFit. So that's kind of how I'd focus, is like, I think some of the best CrossFitters that we're going to see and have seen come out of Olympic weightlifting camps or gymnastic camps. Like you see these people who are ex-gymnasts dabble in CrossFit, and all of a sudden they're great athletes. Or Matt Frazier, the most dominant CrossFitter of all time. He was an Olympic he was an Olympic lifter. So like he had that expertise and then came into the sport and dominated. So
and just built that big engine. So
exactly.
It's like he didn't have to focus on 50% of it.
He didn't touch a barbell very often at all in his training.
That.
He tells that on a couple podcasts. He's like, yeah, I didn't do like any lifting for a very long time, and then I could, get on the bar and beat everyone.
And I feel like developing like the barbell strength, well, one, there's like a more genetic piece of it, like definitely some limitations there, but I think building the barbell piece from where I sit would take a lot longer. Mm-hmm. Like I think I could coach anyone to a pretty decent engine in 8 to 12 months, like from zero. Mm-hmm. I think I could walk you through a program that would get you there. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can walk through someone how to get an elite squat in 8 to 12 months.
Exactly. It takes a long time, and that's why I'd focus on the strength development early, because we want them to be like built like a tank.
Yeah.
And then, but also have the gymnastics like abilities, mm-hmm. right? Like the ability to do the skills. And then that's when once you have those two main building blocks, the gymnastics capacity, or the gymnastic, skills and movement patterns, and then the ability to lift a lot of weight on the barbell, then you add in that engine on top. And that's basically what Matt Frazier did, right? Is he had the the weightlifting background, so he was very strong and could also move the bar very well, skillfully. And then he added the gymnastics, and then lots of engine work, and then voila, he dominates.
And now, so you were competing at a really high level at one point, and you've kind of, it seems to me, since we've known each other, kind of refocused your hobbies.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I'm
still
a washed up CrossFitter. I enjoy doing it, but I do it for the purpose of training for Colorado.
Right.
Which Colorado, like you're alluding to, I have a few hobbies that, like, I love having hobbies that require fitness because it gives me a reason to do CrossFit now. Yeah. Like CrossFit used to just be, I do CrossFit to get better at CrossFit, which eventually gets really boring, right? And it did for me. I've been doing it for well over a decade, like 12 years or something like that. And at some point in there, it just got boring. I just I loved CrossFit, but I didn't want to get better at CrossFit anymore necessarily because, I don't know, just like it felt like a losing proposition. It's like I'm not going to train hard enough or be willing to train hard enough to make it to the tippy top of the competitive landscape, but I just want to go fishing all the time,
right.
And then eventually moving here to Colorado, my buddy introduced me to hunting. So basically like backcountry bow hunting. So hiking very long distances in the backcountry, obviously camping out there overnight and stuff like that. That all of a sudden refocused my energy where it's like, whoa, the fitness required to do that for 30 straight days is a lot. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not training, there's no way I'm going to be ready for this. And I'm going to be a liability in the woods for my buddy who's relying on me to help him, hunt these elk. I need to step it up. Yep. So that was so cool because it refocused my training to, I'm not just training to be good at exercise, right? I'm playing real sports, as Ken Power says. And my real sport was backcountry bow hunting and then also pickleball. Now it's like my obsession. I love playing pickleball. And it's so funny because even yesterday when I was playing, like I'm quick. I'll put it that way. I'm very quick and I can get to the ball that most people don't think I'm going to get to. And like, I think there was like 3 times yesterday. I'm playing with pretty high level players. So it's like, how did you get that? And it all comes back to like this training that I'm doing in CrossFit allows me to be really explosive, but also gives me endurance to carry a ruck for miles and miles and miles. I think I did 315 or so miles last September, and that was all with a heavy ruck on. And like being able to do both ends of the spectrum, the fast, explosive, powerful stuff, and also the very long, slow, grueling stuff. I give all credit to CrossFit because CrossFit kind of prepares you for everything. Mm-hmm. So I can be the Colorado athlete that goes backcountry snowboarding, that plays pickleball, and goes hunting, potentially all in the same day. Like you can do all the 3 of those things in the same day, and it prepares me for being good, or at least able to do all the things. I mean, mountain biking is another one. Mountain biking is very much the way that I do it. It's not cross country. It's very much like punchy. So like there'll be a sharp uphill and then a super fast downhill and then a sharp uphill. So I'm doing like enduro, mountain biking, and that the only reason I'm able to hang with people there is because of that CrossFit training. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Building up that engine.
Exactly.
I kind of had a similar experience. I wanted to be deep in the backcountry, wanted to do survival stuff. And I figured that the only way I was going to get out there, short of like having a side-by-side, was to run, a really lightweight run. And previously, I played football, so I thought you ran fast when you go for like long runs. Right. That would make sense. You run faster, it's over faster. But then I found out through friends and just being out in the bush that long, slow running will get you deeper in the backcountry than anything else, or long hikes up mountains. And like you start to develop this engine, but you're doing it with a purpose. It's not just a slog. Like I'm not just running to run and torture myself or look a certain way aesthetically. It's like I'm running because I know this is going to give me a capability to do what I really love. And
that's like people who struggle with motivation in the gym, I think one of the key elements is they have to understand what their purpose for training is. And a lot of people, I get emails all the time and messages like, hey, how do you deal with motivation? It's like, well, motivation simply comes from what is the reason you're doing the thing. So if you're having issues with workout motivation, chances are you don't have a very good reason to be working out, or you haven't connected. You might have it, you just haven't connected with it yet. Whether that's I want to stay in shape and live a long, healthy life for my grandkids, right? You probably have that somewhere deep down in there, but if you haven't truly connected with it, you're going to lose motivation.
Sure.
But man, for me, when hunting season's around the corner, like you don't have to be like, Ben, are you working out today? It's like, you better believe it, because if I, mess up and don't work out and I'm out of shape and I can't handle, hiking over that last ridge to, at the last 20 minutes of dark or 20 minutes of daylight to get to that, big bull that's bugling, then I failed, right? And that keeps me awake at night almost.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm prepared for it. So have to make sure that you have a deep connection with why you're training. And if you don't have that, then the chances of you sticking with it are just, I don't know, low. At least for me it is. And if I don't have a purpose to do something, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So yeah.
What about like the difference between how you would train, just for CrossFit versus training for the backcountry? Are you putting in more miles? Are you like just doing more backpacking? Like, are you doing fishing trips during the summer? What kind of stuff do you train?
I mean, there's a lot of different camps here. Some people to prepare for the backcountry rucking do like a lot of rucking and a lot of backcountry stuff. I don't, right? And that is simply a matter of like, a few of the guys that have trained me, like one of my buddies, Dan, runs a big elk training camp called Elk Shape, and he's like a big fitness guy.
Yeah.
Right? So Dan just does CrossFit. He's like, dude, if you just do CrossFit and make sure you're hitting some longer workouts, you'll be ready for the backcountry.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I did the last 2 years. I didn't do any specific rucking other than like scouting trips to try to find elk. I didn't do anything that was like outside the realm of just constantly varied functional fitness performed at a high intensity. That's it. And as long as I do that, I'm in shape enough to hang with pretty much everyone that I go hunting with. And there probably is an argument where like if I got more miles on my feet, like if I did a lot more running or more rucking, I could potentially be more prepared. But both of those things are very boring to me. So just to I guess appease my ADHD, it's easy for me to go hit a CrossFit workout in an hour or even 2 hours if I'm doing a longer day, and then just be done with it. Yeah. It's a little bit more effort and conscious annoyance if I have to like, all right, let's go hike over here. Let's do, so I also think that backcountry snowboarding, probably tickles that itch a little bit because I do that quite a bit over the winter, just for no other reason that I love backcountry snowboarding, not to get fit or anything. So I think that probably helps a little bit. And then, like I said, the preseason scouting trips, I'm covering a ton of miles then. So that's training, even though I don't view it as training. I just view it as I need to find elk. So I think naturally the CrossFit that I do combined with a couple of these other hobbies, like mountain biking too, right?
Yeah,
like mountain biking is getting my legs in shape for really long, because you're mountain biking for multiple hours. So my hobbies tend to lead me to be fit enough for the backcountry. But if I had a sedentary job and I didn't have any of those hobbies, then yeah, you probably got to put some miles on your feet.
Yeah. I think one thing that's important is just not even necessarily like the physical experience, but just like time in the backcountry. For me, I have like guiding months are typically more during the summer, which kind of leads you right into September. And so by the time I get to September, I feel like a lot of people are spending their 1 month in the backcountry, and I've been in the backcountry for a couple months.
Right.
And I feel very at home. I know how my shoes are going to react. I know what's wrong with my backpack. I know exactly
where all the holes in your tent are.
Yeah. I know when I put my canvas of my tent up, and there's going to be little things of light poking through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that I have that stuff kind of ironed out beforehand. It's similar to scouting in a way, but just like spending time out in the backcountry, it's not even necessarily the physical component. It's just the comfortability with being a woodsman.
Absolutely.
Just being out there.
Well, it's so funny because the first couple days in the woods, I sleep. I like can't sleep, right? It's like it just like doesn't happen. But then, when I'm doing these pre-scouting trips, by the time the season actually starts, I'm very comfortable with it. It's not like if I had to start the season with the sleep deprivation that I get in the scouting trips, like that would be a bad start. But I kind of get that out of the way, kind of like you said, like I dial in my gear. It's like, ooh, I'm missing this piece of equipment, or this piece is broken, or
I don't need this,
or I don't. Yeah, but that's probably the biggest one is I don't need this extra 9 pounds that I'm carrying. And then when you're done with that, then you're ready for the season. So I agree.
It's exciting. What's the biggest hunt you have going on like in the near future, this fall, this summer?
So coming up in the spring, I have some turkey hunts. They're the definition of not big hunts. Turkey hunting is just fun. And there's no, hiking or anything like that required. But I am trying to hopefully plan a trip to Hawaii to do axis deer again. That would be a lot of fun. And honestly, I was really surprised. I went to Hawaii last year and hunted an axis deer, and it was way more similar to Colorado than I ever imagined, because it was like gnarly hiking, because it's a volcano. You're climbing volcanic rock, and like it's very much like a multi-mile ruck to get up into the mountains where all these deer, I mean, there's deer everywhere. And then you get one, and I got to pack it out, and I almost rolled my ankle like 10 times on the way down because there wasn't any trails. So that was really good training, I thought. And then also it's nice that you're in Hawaii and it's an island and it's beautiful. But really the big hunt, I mean, the grand finale, if you will, is elk season. Like I said last year to my team, like don't plan on me doing anything in the month of September. So I took off the entire month, and like I would climb to the top of a peak and like get service like once a week. Otherwise I'm off my sat phone. And yeah, I mean, that's the big finale, or that's like the big kahuna, is just like, can I get successfully hunt an elk in September with my buddies, with my best friends. And I think we have one of my best friends is joining our little tight-knit group.
Nice. He's
like all in on learning. I just taught him how to shoot a compound bow, and he's like sending videos every single day of his groupings, and he's practicing his calling. Like, so he's ready. He's committed. So JT is going to be joining our little tight-knit group of hunters. So I'll be doing some scouting trips with them all of September, hunting elk. Hopefully we'll at least fill one tag. We've got really close the last couple of years. We missed our opportunities, literally. And then I also, for whatever reason, thought it was a good idea to, the week after I've hunted for an entire month and I'm absolutely wrecked and destroyed from Colorado elk season, I'm going to Alaska for a 10-day caribou hunt. A DIY caribou hunt, which is like the gnarliest hunt you could possibly do. It's like going to be 40 degrees, raining and windy, and I'm trying to bow hunt caribou on Adak Island, which is like essentially Russia. And that is a terrible idea, but I'm doing it. So
backing up real quick, for people that don't know what an axis deer is, tell them a little bit about that history. How does this deer end up on Hawaii, and like what's like the special mirage about the axis deer?
So I'm gonna butcher it a little bit. These are like very rough details. You might know better than me, but what I understand is that maybe like 100 or so years ago, basically a really long time ago, the king of Hawaii was gifted axis deer by, I want to say it was Japan. The axis deer is native to Southeast Asia. I think it's Japan.
Let's go with it. Run with it.
So they were gifted from, let's say, Japan. And again, these are, loose details. They were gifted this deer. The king of Hawaii was gifted this deer because it's one of the best eating deer that could possibly exist. It's absolutely delicious, not gamey at all. So they were gifted this deer, and because Hawaii has no natural predators, these deer started to populate everywhere. And now I'm not sure how many islands they're on, but the islands they are on are absolutely, completely overwhelmed with deer, like to a point where they will have to fly helicopters and just slaughter whole herds of deer because of the erosion that they're causing.
Right.
They're causing like basically the whole mountainsides to be, void of grasses and stuff like that. And then the runoff is just like basically ripping away these mountains in Hawaii.
Yeah. So you have root systems that come from the plants, and the root system's job is to keep all of the soil intact. So when all the leaves are eaten off by the deer, the plant dies, with it goes the root system, and then you have major erosion.
Exactly. And I've seen it firsthand. So axis deer is not only one of the best meats that you can possibly eat, like it's absolutely delicious. They live in the sun all year round. Like it just tastes unbelievable. It's also ridiculously overpopulated. And then a lot of Hawaii, especially these smaller islands like Molokai that I hunted, like that's their economy. It's like they rely on hunters, come in, hunt and leave. So that's why I'm all in on it. It's like, it's nothing but positives all around. I guess it's not positive for the deer, but it actually probably is, because they're so overpopulated. They are running into probably some starvation issues, or much better than I go harvest a deer and then take it home and eat it for the next several months than the Hawaiian government have to shoot it and just leave it there. Yeah. Right. Which is kind of, because they have so many deer, that's kind of what they do. So that's my understanding of axis deer. And yeah, it was an amazing trip.
I think a lot of people when they hear hunting, and I maybe this is getting a little better now, but a lot of people when they hear hunting, they hear savage. They hear like people that want to dismember animals and want to slaughter things. And I feel like the hunters I know, it's not really the case. It's more about this is what makes sense from like a logic perspective is for me to get my meat in a natural way. Take axis deer, for example, funding an economy, taking care of a problem, acting like a natural predator would, and ideally executing a swift and relatively painless death compared to anything that's going to happen naturally, like starvation, coyotes, anything like that.
Right, disease, infection, freezing to death.
A lot worse than taking a swift double lung and 40 yards and it's over.
Exactly. And then I'd say another thing is the hunting that I like. So I used to be like an anti-hunter, not in the sense where I'm like, going to PETA protests and rallies, but I was a huge fisherman growing up. And for whatever reason, my like perception of hunting was like, oh, these are just people who want trophies. Or like I see all these people like, here's this giant deer and it's dead and it's mine, right? I perceived it as like, a lot of these people are just trying to kill the biggest animal they can. And like I would see these, pictures of people with like, giraffes in Africa. And I'm like, what the heck is the point of like this? Like, it just seems so ridiculous. Even like that whole story about the guy who shot the lion off the, basically right on the edge of the preserve, like all these like really horrible stories of hunting. And luckily one of my best friends, Gary, here in Colorado, he was like the one that's like, you got to try hunting with me. And I was like, I don't know, man. And he's like, listen, like, let me teach you a little bit about hunting. And then he kind of like in sending me videos and like just lecturing me and stuff like that kind of showed me that like true hunting is like essential for the preservation of like our natural resources. And it's also essential for a lot of the populations of animals that we have, like the trickle down effect of the taxation that they put on hunting, the trickle down effect of the actual hunting tags, like the licenses that we're purchasing. It protects more land than pretty much anything else. It is like almost all of the hunters I know are absolute sportsmen, where they care about the natural resources and the environment more than any hippie person from the city does, I assure you. They're the people who are literally investing time, money, energy, and actually have boots on the ground, like protecting the natural resources that we have. So if anyone cares about the environment, more than anyone else, it's actually the hunters, because they know that if the environment's not there, if the environment's completely screwed up, they're not going to have their ability to hunt, which is, it's fun and it's primal and it's amazing, but they're not going to have the meat. They're usually doing it for the purposes of having really good, amazing times with friends, having good meat to eat. Like the memories that I created with Gary in the woods last September were like memories that'll last my entire life. And like now I have this entire freezer full of meat. And like anytime someone comes over, I'm cooking, bear, deer, elk, something that I've harvested before, and there's always a story behind it, and I know where it came from. So like, long story short, hunting to me used to be this perception of like a bunch of rednecks going for trophies and bragging to their friends about it, and now hunting to me is very much like the ultimate sportsman, the person who cares about the environment the most, who cares where their meat comes from, and who actually knows how to live as an apex predator in this world that we live in. So anyway, I've very much done a 180 from not liking hunting to now it's my biggest obsession probably.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience, I think, because we both didn't grow up hunting, so we didn't really have an understanding of it. And I grew up similar to you. Every waking free moment I had, I was fishing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was catch and release, which as I've gotten older, I've become like less and less interested in catch and release. Sure. Because as I've really started thinking about the lives that I'm taking, and whether it's directly by my hand or something like Carter Country Meats, where I know the people that are doing the slaughter, I have a connection there, and I know that the pain that animal is going through is for a reason. And now I find myself struggling to do like catch and release fishing, because I feel like I'm just like jerking the fish around and messing them up and putting them back. So I've kind of like, from what I did when I was a child, I literally flipped 180 on both hunting and fishing,
Yeah.
which is, it's interesting to see like how we progress as we get older and our minds change a little bit.
Yeah, it is really interesting. That's an interesting point about fishing. Obviously, almost all the fishing I did was catch and release. I used to run like a shark fishing guide company, so we'd catch these sharks, we'd tag them, we'd release them, right? So the client got their thrill of reeling in and touching a 8+ foot shark, and then I also like made sure that we did a little bit of research. So we'd always like measure the fish, take a picture, tag it with the tag, and the amount of recaught sharks that I've like, basically when your shark gets recaught, they send you a t-shirt and a hat and say, and like a data sheet that says, hey, here's where your shark was recaught. Here's the approximate length. Here's the weight. And the amount of sharks I've like caught in Delaware, and then they're caught like 5 years later on like the tip of Florida. It's so cool.
That's wild.
So catch and release, especially like, at least like the catch and release that I've been a part of, especially if it's like your goal is like to be very swift with it.
Yeah.
The data kind of shows that it does work, right? You're not completely like the fish. It's not like the fish doesn't eat again, like some people will make you believe. And in fact, I've even caught the same shark twice in the same day, right? Which just shows it's like, all right, this this shark clearly didn't care. But yeah, man, it's amazing as you grow up and you learn the way, like your little perception of the world is like, 0.0000000 repeating for a very long time, 1% of how the world actually works.
Right.
So as we grow and as we learn, it's like, everyone has these like very staunch opinions and staunch views on something like hunting, but all of a sudden a door opens, we learn a little bit more, we dig a little bit deeper, and then all of a sudden now we're on the exact opposite side of that coin of saying, oh, I fully support this, and I find it a very valuable thing for the world. So it's, as long as you're open to like learning and exploring new things, I feel like you can always change your mind. You can always change your opinion. And if you're ever in a place where you are unwilling to change your opinion and you're unwilling to change your mind, then you're probably wrong, or you're very much at a risk of not understanding the whole picture. It's like, I feel like I can be convinced to do anything and to believe in anything simply because I don't have the arrogance to think that the things that I believe in are the only way the world works, or I am the only right person on earth.
Yeah, it's that indoctrination, right? Like you get these beliefs that X is right, so Y, Z are also right, and then like suddenly you have this belief system based on a fundamental belief, but when that one thing falls out, then everything gets flipped on its head.
Yeah.
I always say, I think I have more in common with a vegan than I do a mindless meat eater.
Probably.
I think because we both eat meat doesn't make me like we're not on the same team necessarily. I think everyone should be thinking about where their meat comes from. I know I didn't when I was growing up. My dad told me that we don't kill animals. And then we would eat steak for dinner. And I was like left very confused for a long time.
Sure.
And I think an interesting thing about it is the more it resembles us, the more we care. So it's like with fish, people are much more willing to like catch and release fish, but you would never catch and release a deer.
Right.
Because you would see its eyes and you would be there with the animal and be like, oh, this feels terrible.
Sure.
Like, I'm definitely not going to do this. But a fish we have like less connection to because
Sure.
it doesn't necessarily walk like us. It doesn't look
Right.
like us. But you see a baby deer, you're like, well, that's kind of like a little baby human.
It's cute. Or a baby bear.
Yeah, baby bear.
I mean, my gosh, they're adorable.
Yeah, it's just the more we see ourselves in something, the more we begin to care about it, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, and I think that we're moving in the right direction. Like I think, take it or leave it. I think social media and a lot of like the access to information is actually allowing us to spread the message and for people to learn about it.
I've been actually pretty surprised because I've been pretty open with my hunting adventures. Like even on my, like I run a CrossFit social media company essentially, right? So I have a decent amount of followers on something like Instagram where they're following us for CrossFit tips.
Yep.
But I'm pretty open about my hunting there. I don't hide myself or what I do there. And I've actually been pretty, surprised at how few people have been like, unfollowed, I hate you. I mean, it happens, but there's lots of times where like vegans or people who are, very much animal rights activists have, reached out and be like, hey, like, I really appreciate you sharing this. And while I don't choose to go that route, like I don't want to harm an animal ever, even if that means never eating meat again. I think if people do choose to eat meat, you're doing it the right way. It's the people in this middle ground that eat meat and also somehow hate hunting. It just doesn't make any sense, because there's no more ethical meat to eat than one that you harvested and know where it came from yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That, and then I think also this like resurgence of like closely held farms too.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, like basically being involved in the cow's life from birth to death, making sure that they have an ethical life where they're free to roam and have plenty of space. They're not confined, sharing diseases.
Yep.
And obviously, shit works.
Oh yeah, it tastes amazing.
I mean, it's great steak.
It
Like,
tastes so good.
You can't say that like it's like for the product. It's just they want so much velocity and beef that they want to pack them all into one little center so they can just rip through as many as possible.
Right, and you know, some of, based on what I was a agricultural business major in college, and so I have a little bit of understanding of the ag industry and the CAFOs, like the confined animal feeding operations that a lot of the traditional meat comes from, that we get from like a Burger King or something like that, right? Like the environmental impact of that is terrible. So when like vegetarians and vegans and the such are like very adamant about like, we like no more meat, it's bad for the environment, there is some truth that rings to that, right? There is some truth from, the confined animal feeding operations are terrible with the amount of methane gas, and like just like everything about it is kind of ugly when it comes to the environment. But again, like we can't go all into these opinions, because regenerative farms like you're talking about, or ethically hunted meat, like those are some of the best possible things for the environment, because the net positive of you know, regenerative farming is better for the, like you're leaving the environment better than when it started, which is amazing. And then same thing with hunting. The tags that are allocated, and making sure that you're hunting the right things at the right time with the, you know, right tags. The net benefit to the actual environment is a positive, not a negative, because the environment would be a very bad place if predators didn't exist, right? The ecosystem would collapse if predators didn't exist. So we have to make sure that there's predation, and that's a lot of times where humans come into play, because we have very much populated the world to a point where we need to be the predators. We can't just let wolves run around everywhere. We can't just go releasing grizzly and polar bears all over the place, right? We now are the ones that kind of have to take care of the predation. So why not do it ethically, and then it feeds people? So
Yeah, there's a term in biology called a keystone predator, which doesn't necessarily mean the highest predator. A lot of times it's somewhere in the middle. So like orca eats otter eats this fish eats starfish eats mollusk. Where somewhere in the middle, if that predation stops, that's what blows up the entire system. It's not always necessarily the highest on the food chain. I feel like we always think about, who's the highest on the food chain? That keeps everything regulated. It's not necessarily, because frankly,
each piece of the chain, right? I mean, if you break one piece of the chain, it's a broken chain, right?
That's right.
So each one of those interactions is so important.
What do you? One thing when I first started hunting, the biggest thing that got in my way was money. Being a young kid, I knew zero people that hunt. Well, let me backtrack. I wanted to use a primitive bow, because I wanted to be able to make it with my hands, be able to make the arrows. It seemed more resourceful and also cheaper.
And you're so much cooler than I am for that.
Well, that's a fact. But
that's so much cooler than me.
I just I went that avenue because I felt like, one, I could level up when I didn't necessarily have a bunch of money.
Sure.
Because I mean, you know, bows are crazy expensive. Guns are pretty expensive. How do you get into this sport if you don't know anybody? If you're listening to this pod and you're like, I don't know anyone, I don't have a lot of money, you know, I'm fresh out of college.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot of really good resources on the internet. Like what's so cool, similar to what books were back in the day, now YouTube is modern day. It's like you can essentially be friends, they just won't know it, with some of the best and brightest minds in any particular industry. So if you want to be friends with one of the best CrossFit coaching companies, right? Like that's where we come in, at least we think. But I approach the same way that I want people to learn CrossFit with how I learned how to hunt, which was scouring the internet for information. And especially if you're a budget hunter, the guys at the Hunting Public is a great resource because all they do is public land hunting. So they're not like, there's so many freaking internet hunters that are famous because they have these, basically they're hunting on private ranches and it's just ridiculous and it's not realistic. Like the kinds of scenarios you see these people in are not the scenarios you're going to run into hunting on public land. But the Hunting Public guys, they literally hunt public land only, and the stuff that they use for hunting, they're all budget conscious. Like one year that I saw the guy in one of his videos, he used a plastic water bottle as his bugle tube because he lost his bugle tube, right? So they're very resourceful, and they're not using like super crazy top of the line everything, and they're not super sponsored. They're just like, nah, we just like here are the things that work for us, and we put in time, effort, and and a little bit of money, but we make it work. So I would heavily invest in finding a few trusted resources that are the kind of hunter that you want to be. If you're going to be hunting public land and trying to do it as cheaply as possible, then those are the guys you want to go with. If you are willing to invest a little bit more and you're just like, hey, I'm all in on this, then there's other resources to go to. So I scour the internet. And then if you are fortunate enough to live close to a bow shop, especially if you're getting into archery, obviously, if you're close enough, if you live near enough to a bow shop, like the amount of helpful people that you'll run into there is amazing. Like you can register for 3D archery shoots. You can register for all kinds of stuff that are like social events for these people. Yeah, you're going to run into a lot of hunters that don't have anything to do with you because their lips are sealed. Yeah. They're not going to tell anyone how to do anything. But just as many people are going to be really helpful if you go in with a beginner's attitude and don't try to act like you know everything, and just say, hey, I'm here to soak up as much information as you're willing to give me, be respectful, and you'll be amazing how far that gets you.
Yeah, I mean, that's with Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. I
Yeah,
walked in there, I'm like, I want to shoot trad, and I know nothing. Like, I literally have made little bows in the woods, and that's all I've ever tried to do, and they don't work that well.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I've got like Olympic coaches like telling me to keep my elbow up and like back tension and like all these like really fundamental tips that, I mean, unless you're with like really good professionals, you're gonna miss out on a lot of that stuff.
Exactly.
So,
And there's nothing that beats in person, right? So obviously, for everyone, most everyone has an internet connection, right? So that gets you connected to a lot of these great online resources. But if you can get in person and rub shoulders with someone who can, peer over your shoulder as you're, shooting your first few arrows and stuff like that, like that's so valuable. And rely on your network. Like for me, I didn't really know that many hunters. I knew Gary, who's the guy who was getting me into it, but he hasn't been successful, right? So how much can I really learn from him, right? Other than what he's learned through his research. And I kind of reached out to my network, and then one of my buddies, it was actually Eric. Of course it was Eric.
Of course.
Eric Hinman introduced me to a guy named Kurt that he'd done like a collaboration with. And then
he does 10,000 stuff?
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
Eric told me to hit him up the other day. I
yeah,
need to meet Kurt.
So I'm super tight with Kurt. I'm going to shoot with him on Friday, actually.
Nice.
Super tight with Kurt, and that's who I'm going to Alaska with.
Okay, cool.
So now Kurt and I are great friends because I was just like, hey, man, if you ever need someone to come hunting with you, like, I'm your guy. And, of course, he goes hunting all the time, so I'm just with him all the time. And, it's just, like, being open to be introduced to new people and, like, just be an open-minded person. You'll meet people who can take you under their wing and teach you stuff.
Yeah, it can be a very intimidating culture to go into. Like everything, like snowboarding has its own culture, surf has its own culture. Like hunting can be definitely intimidating because everyone's like kind of gruff and like a little bit seasoned, and I've seen more than you've seen,
dude.
And it's a little bit scary at first. So having a couple people that you can bounce ideas and questions off of,
and you'll find the right people. So my first experience was exactly what you're talking about. I'm not going to name the bow shop because I don't want to talk too much hate. But I went to this famous bow shop, walked in, didn't know what I was doing, but I had a list of stuff I was supposed to get sent from Gary. Like, Gary's like, get a bow, get a sight, get a this, get a that. And I went in, I'm like, hey, guys, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm supposed to get all this because I'm going elk hunting in September. And, of course, they already are like,
snickering a little bit.
Okay, this guy. And they, the guy starts helping me get set up with the bow, and they keep asking me all these questions. And they're like, hey, do you want to do this or this? And I'm like, I don't know, guys. I don't even know how to answer this question. Gary says this, because I would text him and then Gary would tell me what to say. Gary says this. That happened like 5 times. What about, you want to, are you thinking 33 axle to axle or 31 axle to axle? I'm like, guys, I don't know what that means. I'm a beginner. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me text Gary. Gary respond, and then there was it happened again, and Gary responded, and then one of the guys in the back was just like, is Gary going to shoot the bow for you as well? And I was just like, I was pissed.
I'm going to shoot this bow at you.
I didn't know how to do that, so I couldn't. I was pissed though. That is not how you get more people into the sport.
Yeah.
That is not going to help further the agenda of this amazing hunting community. But luckily, several other shops that I've been to, including the one that I just went to with my buddy in Salida, have been absolutely top-notch, incredible bow shops where it's just they're just so helpful. And they're like, hey, here are the options. You got your high end, your middle, this. I would suggest this. Just amazing people that work with you for 7 hours to get a bow set up and answer all of your questions and teach you all these things. So yes, you could have my experience and have the, just basically feel like you're a total idiot and be made to feel like an idiot. Or you can have great experiences like Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear, great shop. Every time I've been in there, I try to let them know how beginner I am, and they probably still underestimate how much of a beginner I am, but they've just always been so nice and kind and helpful. So you're going to have certain people at certain shops that are just gruff and annoying and just frankly mean. And then you're going to have some people that are super nice and accommodating, and you just kind of have to put on your big boy pants and go accept some criticism because you're a beginner coming into a sport that has a lot of egos and a lot of, like you said, people who I've done everything. I've hunted every animal on every 12 continents, it's you're going to have to get over that. But most people I would say are very, very helpful and accommodating.
Yeah. It's like the feast versus famine mindset. The people who feel like you being there is taking away from their opportunities. It manifests in this weird way where they're shitty to you.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I'm a public land hunter. I'm not taking any opportunities away from you. I know I don't look the part or maybe play the part that you're expecting me to play, but I'm just here to learn.
Right.
So let's just.
I think the best part was at the time I had a Tesla, so I pull up to this bow shop with a Tesla Model Y Performance, and they're just like, who is this guy? Who is this Denver crazy liberal hunting wannabe, whatever. And it's just hilarious. But of course, what's so funny now, to make this whole story full circle, is I'm actually hanging out with the guy who said, is he going to shoot it for you too? We ended up becoming really good friends. So some people are going to be rough around the edges, and they're going to, I think that's a lot of times what men do, right? Is they'll poke you and prod you. You get challenged when you try to enter a community or enter a tribe. Even that book, Tribe by Sebastian Junger, I think talks about it a little bit. Or no, I'm thinking of, there's a book called The Way of Men that I've read by some guy.
By that dude.
Donovan something. Dang it. I've hung out with him and I forgot his name. Anyway, he has a really cool book, but he talks about a lot of times, especially in a tribe of men, if you come to join a crew, right, you're going to be tested and you're going to be challenged, and you're going to be jabbed, and they're going to maybe spear you a bit because they want to see how you react. And if you can handle it, then they're like, all right, this guy's legit. But if I got angry and walked out of the bow shop and left him a nasty Google review, it's all right, that guy's clearly not tough enough to cut it in this sport if he can't handle a couple jokes, right? So if you go in and you're willing to stand up for yourself and stay confident, don't back down from any challenge, then I think the doors will open for you, even at the rough and gruff shops.
I think if it's a good, is Gary going to shoot it for you? That's kind of a good diss. I would have laughed.
I think everybody laughed, and I laughed and then probably turned red as well.
So, if it's a good shot, you just got to take it on the chin.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the comeback I made was what did I say? I had a very witty comeback for it. He's like, is Gary going to shoot it for you too? And I was just like, oh man, totally blanking on what the comeback was, but I had a comeback. That was
decent,
important.
at
It was
least.
it was decent.
Yeah.
It was decent. I played it well.
Yeah, you got to have something in the chamber to make sure that you get through that.
I think I was like, I don't know. I'll have to ask Gary.
That's pretty good.
I'm pretty sure that's what I said.
That's pretty
You
good.
got to chuckle out of it.
So last year you said that you had some missed opportunities on your elk. You want to tell me the story? Because I don't think I've heard this yet.
Oh man, there's a lot of stories. We don't have time for all of them. But long story short, so my hunting partner Gary, he missed 3 shots in the season. Two of them were very difficult shots. Like one was a 68 yarder on a cow that was tough. One that was like pretty dark. He didn't have a chance to he ranged kind of improperly. The main one that hurt the most was I called in a big bull across this giant ag field, called him in, and I got him to 23 yards. And Gary missed at 23 yards because Gary didn't have a chance to range. The elk zigged when he thought he was going to zag. He didn't get a chance to range and had already drawn, and then couldn't let down because the elk was staring at him. So he just guessed, and he shot at his 40 pin at 23 yards. And it went right over his back on this big bull that I called in. So I did my job, called him in really close, and Gary, missed because of several factors that, frankly, we'll know better next time. And then the final day of the season, the final day of the season, I missed one through. It was a tough shot, but it was a shot that in practice I would hit probably 7 out of 10 times, and it was like a 42-yard shot through some trees. Yeah, and I hit a tree. And and it was a big 5x5 the final morning of the season, and that was rough, dude. Like I didn't cry, but like I probably, if I was less dehydrated, I probably would have cried. Like I was just like, that was it, man. It was devastating. Like he walked out exactly where I wanted him to. I ranged it, everything was perfect, and I just pulled the shot, man. I just missed. I wasn't prepared enough.
Was it buck fever or did you just miss?
I'm sure it was buck. I'm sure there was all kinds of factors, man.
Heart racing. For people that don't know, it's like you're hunting. You've been thinking about this moment for 11 months and 29 days.
It frankly popped out of nowhere. It was like we had this. A lot of times you'll call, you'll hear a bull respond, and like you got plenty of time to set up. And
they crash
a lot.
The woods.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're not even moving. Like they'll call and you go to them. Well, this bull on the final morning, they were rutting really hard. We made a call. We heard them super far in the distance, like hundreds of yards. I'm like, all right, we'll head that way. And we're like maybe 20 yards into heading that way, about to crest this hill, and he just rips off a bugle right next to us. And so we just jump off of a cliff essentially. So I'm like, the shot I shot, I'm like leaning into the side of a cliff, like a muddy, like almost vertical muddy cliff. And I'm like leaning into it on one knee, also leaning back to get my bubble balance. Like it was a difficult shot, but like, if I shot it right now, I'd probably shoot it perfectly. But the fact that it was like super surprised out of nowhere, I was caught off guard, like it was just, there was a lot of factors, and nothing can prepare you, I think, for that opportunity other than having that opportunity and failing it, right? So,
I think that's the biggest thing that people fail to prepare for is like shot diversity. Like so many people shoot 60,
they shoot standing up all the time.
60 to 70% of their shots right here. They're relaxed. They're not out of breath, and nothing's going on. It's like the range I'm building back here. I've got 2 trees that are kind of set up like this so that you have a hill on the left. So you can shoot from the bank around the one tree, through the trees, to the right of both trees. And then, 50% are from a knee, another 25% maybe around one of the trees. It's just, you're not going to be sitting there. Everything's not going to be perfect. There's going to be brush. There's going to be weird things in the way that you're gonna have to deal with.
The first elk shot I was ever a part of, this was 2 years ago at the end of the season. I was neither calling nor shooting. I was just kind of there, right? Nice. And we had this bull come literally in the middle of a field. It like walked by us in the middle of a field with no cover. I can't even describe the story because no one would believe it. Essentially, this bull just walks by us in the middle of like a multi-100 acre field where it just decided to walk right by us. And the guy who shot, he had to shoot from crisscross applesauce. Like we were just sitting on the ground, assuming this bull's going to see us and get scared, and it didn't. And then he like Drew sitting down, like not even from a knee. He was just like literally sitting cross-legged, and it's like unless you practice those shots, you're gonna miss them. And he didn't. Yeah, he basically missed. It was a bad shot. So
Yeah, I mean it happens. I think more often than not that you're in a compromised position.
yes,
I think over 50% of the shots you are on one knee, two knees, bending around something.
right.
Or I mean,
Or you've drawn for a minute and a half, like Gary did that one time, and
or
then,
you're soaking wet, or it's dark, or
Yep.
it's just like
Yeah.
backcountry hunting is that way, and I
Yep.
think that's why we love it.
Yep,
That's-
absolutely.
You can't replicate it. Well, Ben, I mean, I think we could talk for about 6 more hours.
There's so many stories that we could share, but we have to go make stories together.
That's right.
We got to get out in the woods and do some more backcountry snowboarding, hunting, all the things.
Yeah, let's snowboard here in the next week or two.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you coming on.
All right, brother.
Bye, guys. Stay wild.